Consider the immense pressure that high-ranking political figures in the U.S. face every single day. What keeps them grounded? What prevents them from breaking under the weight of national scrutiny and responsibility? In Faith and Future, Kash Patel and Karoline Leavitt, key players in the Trump 2.0 administration, open up for the first time about the deeply personal faith that anchored them through the turbulence of political life. Through late-night prayers and solitude and choosing grace over retaliation, their journey is one of quiet strength, resilience, and unwavering belief. It's a powerful story that not only moves the heart, but also offers hope to a generation searching for something deeper. Before we dive into this compelling narrative, drop a comment below letting us know where you're tuning in from. And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. In a warmly lit studio in Washington, D.C., a golden glow casts a calm over the room. The audience settles into their seats, a hush of anticipation rising as cameras glide silently over the rows. The live broadcast of Faith and Future is about to begin. Dressed in a sharp navy blue suit, Kash Patel steps onto the stage with calm confidence. He greets Karoline Leavitt, the youngest press secretary in White House history, who gracefully adjusts the microphone pinned to her elegant, pearl-toned dress. "Great to see you again, Kash," she says warmly, as though reconnecting with an old friend after a long journey. "Now you've got me intrigued, Karoline," he replies with a soft chuckle. Both take their places in leather armchairs at center stage. Leavitt leans in slightly and whispers, "Tonight isn't about politics. It's about something much deeper, isn't it?" Kash nods, his eyes reflecting quiet certainty. "Exactly." The floor director counts down. The red light atop the camera flashes on. The broadcast begins. Host Emily Carter steps into the spotlight, her voice bright and inviting. "Welcome to Faith and Future. Tonight, we're joined by two distinguished guests from the Trump 2.0 administration. Kash Patel, a national security expert, and Karoline Leavitt, the bold voice of the White House. But tonight, they're not here to talk policy. They're here to share a side of leadership we rarely see, the role of faith in the halls of power." As Emily exits the stage, the lights dim slightly, drawing the audience's focus to Patel and Leavitt seated face to face. The room grows still, the atmosphere charged with expectation. Leavitt turns to Patel, her eyes keen yet kind. "Kash, we've worked side by side in the White House, under intense pressure every day. I've always admired your composure. But tonight, I want to ask you, what has faith meant to you in that journey? What led you to those spiritual moments, even while standing in the eye of the political storm?" Kash Patel takes a slow breath, his hands resting gently on his knees. His eyes scan the audience, then return to Karoline Leavitt. "Karoline," he begins, voice low and deliberate, "talking about faith in the world of politics isn't easy. Everything you say can be misinterpreted or used against you. For a long time, I thought staying silent was the safest option. But recently, I've come to believe that some truths are too important to keep quiet, no matter the risk." His words ripple through the room, sincere and steady, drawing a reflective stillness from the audience. Leavitt smiles knowingly, her expression one of quiet understanding. "I get it, Kash. Politics can be brutal. And faith, sometimes it's seen as a vulnerability. What changed for you? What made you decide to speak out?" Patel leans back, tapping the arm of his chair thoughtfully, eyes clouded with memory. "One night, after a long day of dealing with attacks, intelligence controversies, accusations I won't drag up again, I came home exhausted. But it wasn't physical. It was deeper, like something was missing. I sat alone in my study, just empty. That's when I noticed an old Bible on the shelf, something my mom had given me years ago. I'd never opened it before." The room grows quiet, the audience leaning in. Leavitt nods gently. "And what did you find in it?" A smile breaks across Patel's face, his eyes brightening. "I opened to the Gospel of John, and the story of the Samaritan woman stood out. Jesus broke every cultural rule to speak with someone society had cast aside. He didn't judge her. He offered truth, compassion, a new path. In D.C., we're constantly dividing us versus them, allies versus enemies. But that story challenged me. Jesus didn't draw lines. He erased them." Leavitt's expression softens. "That really resonates. Working under this roof, the pressure can be relentless. My Catholic faith has been my anchor during the chaos, especially when I'm under fire from the media. But for you, in the intense world of national security, did your faith ever cause inner conflict?" Patel's gaze sharpens, not with anger but with honesty. He meets Karoline's eyes directly. The hardest part, he says, is living out the command to love your enemies. In my role, opposition isn't just disagreement, it's personal and sometimes vicious. I used to think forgiveness made you weak. But Scripture showed me another kind of strength, the strength to show kindness when every instinct says to fight back. His voice carries a quiet conviction, and a chill seems to move through the room. Leavitt offers a gentle, understanding smile. I feel that, too. In the White House, criticism comes daily. It's hard not to carry bitterness. I remember one night during the campaign, after a brutal day of media attacks, I just broke down and prayed. Letting go of that anger, it was like a release. She pauses, then asks softly, have you had a moment like that? Patel nods slowly, his eyes distant, reflecting. Once, he says, after a particularly harsh smear article, I was ready to fire back. Had the statement drafted, phone in hand. But instead, I stopped and prayed, not just for myself, but for the people who wrote it. At first, it felt forced, even ridiculous. But then, a peace settled over me. Like a burden lifted. I realized, forgiveness isn't about letting them win. It's about not letting anger trap you. Leavitt's eyes glisten. That's powerful, Kash. Working alongside you, I've seen firsthand the weight of what we carry. But your story shows how faith can change the way we carry it. Turning to the audience, she adds with conviction, we often think faith belongs in private spaces. But what Kash is showing us is that it can shape how we work, lead, and endure, even in the heart of the nation's most brutal political arenas. Patel smiles, his voice calm but resonant with purpose. Exactly. The teachings of Jesus, they're not just abstract. They're real. They're meant to be lived. They challenge us to act with compassion, to respond with kindness, to truly see others. In the world of politics, that's nothing short of revolutionary. The audience erupts in emotional applause. Behind the scenes, even the production crew exchanges quiet nods, sensing that what's unfolding goes far beyond a typical broadcast. This is no ordinary political conversation. It's something deeper. Karoline Leavitt leans slightly toward Kash Patel, her smile warm and eyes bright with sincerity. Kash, she begins, her tone intimate, you mentioned that night when you turned to the Bible in the middle of all the pressures of Washington. What did you find in those pages? What made someone like you, hardened by national security work and White House politics, stop and truly reflect on the words of Jesus? Patel grows quiet, his gaze dropping to his hands, as if searching for the right words to share something deeply personal. Karoline, he says slowly, this is something I've never spoken about publicly. One night, after another long day at the White House, my mind felt heavy, not from the usual stress, but from deeper questions. The criticisms, the controversies, the decisions, they all started to weigh on me. And I asked myself, what am I really doing this for? What's the point of it all? Leavitt nods, her expression filled with empathy. I understand. It's easy to lose yourself in the daily grind here. But those moments, they make you step back and ask the bigger questions. What happened next? I was in my home office, Patel continues, a small smile forming as he remembers. The lights were low. I glanced at this old Bible sitting on a shelf, a gift from my mom I'd never actually opened. I picked it up and flipped to the Gospel of Matthew. The Sermon on the Mount caught my eye. Blessed are the poor in spirit. Love your enemies. Turn the other cheek. Those words stunned me. They were the complete opposite of everything this world teaches, especially in politics, where power and winning seem like the only goals. The audience stirs. A few heads nod. The story is drawing them in. Leavitt leans in, her voice soft and curious. How did those words affect you, Kash? I've seen how steady you're under pressure. But how did those teachings start to influence your life? Patel lets out a breath, his tone touched with humility. Honestly, at first, I thought it all sounded idealistic, unrealistic, even. Love your enemies? In the White House? It felt like a joke. But something about turn the other cheek made me stop. I thought of all the times I wanted to strike back, prove I was right, defend my name. And I wondered, what if I didn't? What if I tried to live differently? Leavitt smiles gently, like a close friend inviting deeper honesty. Did you try it? I mean, really live that way? That's not an easy thing to do in this environment. Patel nods, but this time, not with the hardened resolve of a security official, but with the quiet conviction of someone who's been changed. I did try, he says. It started with something small, but deeply personal. There was this article, just full of lies. It twisted everything, deliberately. My first instinct was to call the comms team, write a rebuttal, go on offense. But I stopped myself. I closed the door to my study, sat in the dark, and for the first time, I prayed. I whispered, Jesus, if you're there, help me. Help me let go of this anger. Show me another way. The room is silent. Some audience members bow their heads, visibly moved by the vulnerability in his voice. Leavitt's eyes glisten. She speaks gently. And how did you feel, Kash? Did it change anything? Patel takes a moment. His voice, when it comes, is quiet but clear. No flashes of light, no miracles, Kash Patel says softly. But I felt something strange, relief, like I had set down a heavy weight I didn't realize I'd been carrying. For the first time, I understood that I didn't need to win every fight or cling to resentment to prove myself. Forgiveness, I realized, doesn't free them, it frees me. Karoline Leavitt's fingers gently gripped the arm of her chair, visibly moved. Kash, that story means more than you know. Working with you, I've seen firsthand how intense the pressure here can be. That feeling of being trapped by anger, it's not unfamiliar. For me, faith has always been a refuge, especially during the hardest moments of campaigning. But after that night, how did your journey continue? Patel leans back, eyes lifting thoughtfully as he considers the question. I began reading the Bible regularly, not as a checklist or obligation, but as a way to find direction. One passage kept coming back to me, the story of Nicodemus in the Gospel of John. He sought Jesus in the night, searching for truth. That phrase, born again, haunted me. It made me wonder, in a place like the White House, where people are defined by their titles and power, what would it mean to be transformed from the inside out? Who would I become if I truly lived by these words? Leavitt leans in, her tone alive with curiosity, yet tender, like a friend engaged in a late-night conversation. That's such a profound question, Kash. Honestly, I'm moved that someone like you, who's been in the thick of political battles, finds peace in Jesus' teachings. Do you think these values can reshape how we work in this place? How we approach even our most routine tasks? Patel nods. His voice is steady, thoughtful. Absolutely, Karoline. In national security, we always talk about protecting our country. But through Jesus, I began to see that true protection isn't only about building walls or using force. It's about building a space where people are seen, valued, not by party, not by rank, but as human beings. That's the lesson I'm learning. And I know I'm still far from perfect. A soft wave of applause ripples through the audience. Behind the cameras, the production crew exchanges knowing glances, recognizing this conversation is reaching rare emotional depth for a televised moment. Sensing the weight in the room, Leavitt continues, her voice filled with inspiration. You've spoken a lot about inner transformation. Can you share more, Kash? How has your faith changed the way you see your work, or even how you interact with the people around you? A smile spreads across Patel's face. His eyes reflect both humility and quiet strength. Go ahead, Karoline, he says with a spark of warmth. I'm ready to keep going. Leavitt pauses, fingers brushing the arm of her chair, as if unlocking a memory. I grew up in a small town in New Hampshire. My family ran an ice cream shop. Faith wasn't a separate part of life. It was woven into everything. My parents taught me to pray before meals, go to Mass, and see God in the little things. But when I stepped into the White House, especially during the 2024 campaign, I saw faith not just as a tradition, but as a lifeline. On the hardest days, when the weight felt too much to bear, it was what kept me grounded. Patel's gaze softens, clearly moved. Karoline, that really hits home. It reminds me of something I've come to believe: faith doesn't magically fix our problems, but it does give us a way to face them. Do you find yourself turning to prayer often, especially in the chaos of this place? Leavitt smiles, her eyes shimmering with unspoken emotion. Almost every day, Kash. Especially since becoming press secretary. This job is like walking a tightrope. Every word matters, and everyone expects you to be flawless. But I'm not perfect. I remember one day vividly. I had just returned to work after giving birth to my son, and we were hit with a media crisis. I was sitting alone in my office, staring at his photo on my phone, overwhelmed. How can I be both a good mom and meet all these demands? I prayed, asking God for clarity. And in that moment, I felt this reminder: focus on what's true, on your family, on your core values. That moment carried me through. The audience is silent now. Some quietly wipe tears, deeply connected to the sincerity in her words. Patel looks at her, his voice low and warm. Karoline, you mentioned truth and values. Tell me, how do you bring those values into your role as press secretary? Kash Patel asks, especially when you're facing the kind of media firestorms we both know all too well. Karoline Leavitt leans forward, her voice clear but warm. I've come to realize that truth isn't just about what I say behind the podium, it's about how I live when no one's watching. In politics, there's a constant temptation to control the narrative. But my faith reminds me I'm serving something greater than an administration or a party. When the media frenzy hits, like with some of the recent stories, I try to pause, pray for clarity, and speak with honesty, even if the truth isn't always popular. Patel listens intently, eyes shining with admiration. That's real courage, Karoline. I think we both know that no matter how intense things get in the West Wing, faith is the anchor that keeps us steady. Leavitt nods, her fingers curling gently around the arm of her chair, emotion flickering across her face. Kash, when you talked about praying to let go of anger, I felt like you were speaking straight from my heart. There are days when pressure is coming from all sides. Faith reminds me I don't have to carry that weight alone. It's like a quiet voice in the chaos saying, you're still guided. You're still seen. You're still valued. Behind the cameras, the production crew exchanges stunned glances. This isn't just another interview. It's something deeper. Two colleagues opening up about convictions that shape more than just their careers. Leavitt, sensing the shift in the room, presses forward, her tone infused with inspiration. Kash, we've shared some personal experiences. But in a world marked by division, how can values like forgiveness, truth, and love actually change the way we do our jobs here? Patel taps his chair lightly, his expression thoughtful. That's a question I wrestle with constantly. In national security, every decision carries weight. Lives, risks, threats. For a long time, I believed strength meant dominance, outmaneuvering opponents, staying in control. But reading the teachings of Jesus changed that for me. Real strength, I've come to see, is holding to your principles even when it's unpopular. It's having the courage to act with compassion in a system that rewards ruthlessness. Leavitt nods gently, her expression reflective. I hear that. But with some of the media controversies surrounding your work, how do you put those ideals into action? Patel gives a wry smile, eyes flickering with humility. Let me give you an example. I was attacked publicly over a decision I made years ago. Every instinct I had told me to respond, to defend myself, to fight back hard. But I thought of a line from 1 Corinthians, love does not seek revenge. I asked myself, if I choose forgiveness instead of retaliation, does that make me weak? But the truth is, forgiveness isn't weakness, it's power. It's choosing the path Jesus walked, responding with dignity, not destruction. The audience stirs, some nodding, others murmuring softly, as if Patel's words echoed something deeply familiar in their own lives. Leavitt leans in again, her voice steady and sincere. Kash, your perspective is striking. In this building, I get tough press questions. Sometimes they go beyond policy and feel like personal attacks. I try to stay grounded and pray for peace, but it's not always easy. Do you ever feel that tension, the push and pull between faith and the pressure to win in politics? Patel pauses, his gaze sweeping the room before settling back on Leavitt. His voice is low but unwavering. Almost every day. In this world, there's a constant expectation to play the game, to attack, spin, and sometimes twist the truth just to stay afloat. But then I read a passage from James that stopped me cold. The tongue is a fire. That line hit hard. Words can destroy, or they can heal. I'm learning, slowly, that living by faith means choosing words that reflect who I want to be, not who the political world expects me to be. It reminds me, Kash Patel says thoughtfully, that words, whether spoken in private meetings or in front of cameras, can either build or destroy. I try to choose mine carefully, to speak with intention rather than anger or pride. I don't always succeed. Honestly, I stumble a lot. Karoline Leavitt's eyes soften with empathy. Me too, Kash. As press secretary, I constantly measure my words. But under pressure, it's easy to slip into defense mode. I remember one particular briefing tense, confrontational. Afterward, I went to my office and prayed not to let bitterness take root. I thought of Philippians, the part about finding joy in all circumstances. It helped shift my focus. I wasn't just defending an agenda, I was called to serve truthfully. Patel nods, visibly moved. Exactly. And what's amazing is that when we live out those values, it doesn't just change us, it changes the people around us. I remember a particularly tense national security meeting. My instinct was to push back hard. But I took a breath, remembered Jesus' teaching on humility, and chose to really listen. That moment led to unexpected common ground. It made me wonder, if we live these values in the White House more often, could we actually transform how things operate? Leavitt leans in, energized by the idea. That's powerful, Kash. But how do we make that real in a place where politics often revolves around power and winning? Where do values like forgiveness and humility even fit? Kash grows contemplative, his eyes distant, as though reaching beyond the studio walls. I think it starts with small, personal choices. In my work, I try to see everyone, whether colleague or critic, not as an obstacle, but as a person. I think of the story of Zacchaeus in the Bible, the tax collector nobody wanted to associate with. But Jesus didn't condemn him. He invited him to come down from the tree and share a meal. That act of kindness changed Zacchaeus. I wonder, what if we approach those who disagree with us with the same compassion? Could it open doors instead of deepening divides? Karoline smiles, her voice alive with conviction. I know exactly what you mean. I try to listen, even when the questions from the press are sharp or accusatory. I remember once, a reporter pressed me hard on a controversy. I answered honestly, calmly, even when I felt cornered. Later, he emailed me to say thank you for the way I handled it. It wasn't some major political win, but it was a moment that affirmed the value of grace under pressure. Patel nods, his voice soft. Those moments matter, Karoline. They're reminders that faith isn't just something we carry privately. It's something we live, and it impacts how others experience us. In the White House, where every word and action gets magnified, honesty, humility, and forgiveness don't just build trust within our teams. They help build trust with the public. Leavitt senses the depth of the moment and continues, her voice rich with sincerity. Kash, you mentioned trust. But in politics, where faith can sometimes be perceived as weakness, how do we stay grounded? Patel leans forward, eyes bright with conviction. That's the real test, isn't it? But I don't believe faith weakens us. It strengthens us. It gives us the courage to do what's right, even when it's unpopular, even when it costs something. The world may measure success by dominance, but faith measures it by integrity. The audience sits still, completely absorbed in this rare, honest exchange. The energy in the studio is quiet but electric. Leavitt takes a breath, her voice gentle and personal. Kash, you've talked about how faith shapes your work. But was there ever a private moment, one that truly changed you, not just as a White House official, but as a person? A silence settles as Patel takes a long pause. His gaze drifts, as if reaching back into a painful but sacred memory. He clasps his hands and speaks, voice low and sincere. Karoline, I've never shared this publicly. One night, after a brutal day, attacks from the media, even from people I once trusted, I went home and sat alone in my study. It felt like everything I'd built was collapsing around me. I opened my Bible and turned to Romans. I read the verse. All things work together for good for those who love God. It stopped me in my tracks. I got down on my knees, cold floor, dim light, and for the first time in a long time, I didn't pray for victory. I prayed for guidance, for clarity. I asked God to help me understand the purpose of my work. The studio is silent. Some in the audience bow their heads, others blink back tears, visibly moved by Patel's vulnerable reflection. Karoline Leavitt's eyes glisten as she gently touches her lips, trying to steady her emotions. Kash, she says, her voice trembling. That's such a powerful moment. After you prayed, how did you feel? Kash Patel offers a quiet smile, subtle, yet profound. It's hard to put into words, Karoline. There was no flash of light or booming voice from heaven. But I felt something shift. A deep peace, like a weight had been lifted off me. And in that stillness, I began to see my work in national security differently, not just as a responsibility, but as a way to serve others. To bring good, just as Jesus did for the one society cast aside. Karoline wipes a tear from her cheek, her smile both shy and sincere. I didn't mean to get emotional, she says, her voice catching slightly. But your words hit close to home. I remember one night in the White House, not long after my son was born. It had been a brutal press briefing. I was exhausted, torn between my role as a mother and the demands of my job. Sitting alone, looking at family photos, I felt like I wasn't enough, not a good enough mother, not a good enough press secretary. I prayed, asking God for the strength to keep going. And like you, I didn't hear a voice, but I felt an overwhelming peace, like God was whispering, you don't need to be perfect. Just keep trying. Kash nods, his expression full of compassion. Karoline, that really resonates. We all have those moments of doubt, where we feel like we're falling short. But faith, it brings us back. It reminds us we're not alone, and we don't have to carry everything ourselves. Karoline's voice grows steadier, though the emotion in her eyes lingers. Exactly, Kash. And what moves me most, hearing you speak, is the realization that faith isn't just a place we retreat to in hard times. It's also a call to show up, to serve, to live out what we believe. When I think about my role in the White House, it's not just about delivering talking points. It's about bringing hope and truth, even when the world feels cynical or hostile. The audience responds with soft applause, some wiping their eyes, visibly touched by the vulnerability and sincerity of the moment. A woman in the front row nods slowly, clearly moved by Karoline's words. Kash's voice is warm, almost reverent. You're absolutely right, Karoline. Faith isn't just something we keep hidden in our hearts. It changes the way we see the world. It challenges us to respond with compassion, even to our critics. Lately, I've found myself looking at colleagues, even those who oppose me, through a different lens. I see people who are struggling, searching for meaning. That's what Jesus teaches us, to look beyond the surface, to see the heart. Karoline Leavitt smiles, her voice bright despite the lingering emotion in her eyes. That's what truly moves me, Kash, she says. You remind me that whether I'm standing at the podium or working behind the scenes, I'm called to love and to serve. There was a day when I felt completely overwhelmed by the press, torn apart by questions and criticism. That night, I prayed and came to a realization. I didn't need to win every argument. I just needed to be honest and do what's right. That's how faith shapes me. Patel's expression softens, his eyes filled with understanding. Exactly, Karoline. Faith doesn't promise the road will be easy, but it gives us a foundation, something solid to stand on when everything around us is shifting. It's what helps us keep moving forward, no matter the storm. Karoline gently wipes her eyes, smiling at him with renewed warmth. Her voice is full of conviction. Kash, I think today we've touched on something truly meaningful, she says, as if trying to preserve the moment. Kash nods, his gaze steady and reflective. I feel that too. These are the kinds of things we usually keep to ourselves. But when we share them, they create real connection. He turns toward the audience, his tone intimate yet powerful. I hope something we said today resonates, even if it's just a new way of looking at things. The studio erupts into applause, some audience members rising to their feet in appreciation. An elderly woman in the front row clutches a handkerchief, nodding through tears, clearly moved. Offstage, a technician whispers to a colleague, never seen a show like this. They're speaking straight from the heart. Beaming, Karoline turns to Kash. Kash, I think the people here, and the viewers at home, can feel your sincerity. I glanced at social media during the break. People are deeply moved. Her voice softens. One comment read, I didn't expect someone like him, working in politics, to speak so openly about faith. What do you make of that? Patel shrugs gently, his response humble. I don't see myself as anything special, Karoline. I'm just a person trying to find meaning, just like everyone else. And if something I said today reached even one heart, that's enough for me. His words are simple but land with undeniable weight. Outside the studio, the conversation continues to ripple. On social media, reactions pour in. One user on X writes, Kash Patel changed my view of him. Talking about Jesus and politics like that? That's bold. A conservative account adds, Leavitt and Patel prove faith still matters in D.C. We need more of this. But skepticism surfaces too. Is Patel using faith to boost his image? Or is it real? The dialogue spreads rapidly. News outlets take notice. Fox News highlights the interview. Patel and Leavitt bring faith to national airwaves in a rare, candid moment. Meanwhile, The Atlantic offers a more cautious take, wondering aloud if this openness is part of a broader strategy to rebrand the Trump 2.0 administration. Still, both outlets agree. The conversation has sparked a wave of discussion across the political spectrum, from believers to skeptics. Back in the studio, Leavitt turns to Patel, her expression hopeful. Kash, I don't think today was just a conversation. I think we may have sparked something that could reach beyond the White House, into society at large. Don't you? Patel's eyes shine with quiet determination. I hope so, Karoline. Because authentic faith, it doesn't build walls. It builds bridges. Not to force others to think like us, but to remind them we're all searching. For meaning, for connection, for purpose. Leavitt nods, her smile bright. We've touched hearts today, Kash. But how do we take this spirit and turn it into lasting change? Patel taps his chair thoughtfully, his voice steady and filled with conviction. I believe faith isn't just a light we carry within us. It's a fire that can spread. And in places like the White House, where it's easy to get caught in the push for power, faith reminds me that every decision, every word, is an opportunity to plant seeds of hope. In national security, my mission is more than just protecting the country. Kash Patel shares, his voice steady and sincere. I want to help build a nation where every person is valued, just as Jesus did. Karoline Leavitt nods, her smile radiant, clearly moved by Patel's words. I understand, Kash. As press secretary, I stand at the podium every day, sometimes feeling like I'm facing the entire world. But faith reminds me, I don't need to win every argument. I just need to speak honestly and maybe offer a little light. She pauses for a moment, then adds, after a particularly tense briefing, I received a message from a viewer. They told me my sincerity made them see politics in a different light. That's when I realized, these values really can reshape the way we connect. The audience is silent but attentive, many nodding gently as if finding comfort in the vulnerability and shared convictions. A man in the middle row, dressed simply, discreetly wipes a tear from his cheek, something deep inside him clearly stirred. Sensing the atmosphere, Patel continues, his voice calm and heartfelt. Karoline, I think today we're showing people that faith isn't meant to stay hidden. It's an invitation to live differently, to show kindness, even to those who oppose us. If we can do that, even in small moments, I believe real change is possible. Leavitt's eyes shine with resolve. You're right, Kash. Inside the White House, we deal with pressure, division, and constant conflict. But if we carry love, truth, and humility into our work, we're not just leading for today, we're building something for the future. Patel nods deeply. That's exactly what I hope for, Karoline. We won't always get it right. We'll face criticism. We'll stumble. But faith gives us a compass. It helps us stay the course, even on the darkest days. And when I leave this place, I want to go with a heart committed to those values. As the conversation concludes, the studio erupts into a standing ovation, not just applause, but something deeper, a collective sense of resonance. Some audience members wipe away tears, while others exchange quiet words, trying to hold on to the moment's meaning. Karoline stands and reaches for Patel's hand, offering a firm and heartfelt shake. Thank you, Kash, she says, her voice thick with emotion. You've inspired me today, and I believe you've inspired everyone here. Patel's smile is quiet but resolute. Thank you, Karoline. This isn't just my journey, it's ours. And I'm grateful to walk it beside you. The cameras pull back, capturing the two figures standing side by side as the applause continues. In the production booth, the crew sits in thoughtful silence, aware that this episode has become something more, a conversation about faith, integrity, and leadership in a world often defined by division. The story, marked by Kash Patel's words about Jesus and Karoline Leavitt's visible tears, reflects something deeply human. In an America grappling with political polarization and relentless pressure, this moment struck a chord. Both figures, closely tied to the Trump 2.0 administration in 2025, know what it means to live under intense scrutiny, Patel for his national security decisions, Leavitt for her public role as press secretary. Yet, in a setting often marked by confrontation, they chose transparency, humility, and faith. And in doing so, they may have offered something we all need, a reason to hope, and a call to lead with heart. The personal moments shared by Patel, kneeling in prayer to release anger, and Leavitt, finding peace through scripture after a demanding day with the press, remind us how faith can serve as a steadfast anchor amid the deep divisions shaping today's society. Their conversation, from applying the teaching to love your enemies in the political arena to striving for honesty under intense media scrutiny, highlights a crucial need for healing in a polarized America. This nation continues to wrestle with challenges such as religious freedom, political conflict, and growing distrust in public institutions. The key lesson for real life today is to discover a spiritual foundation, like faith, that helps withstand pressure while remaining true to personal values. Like Patel, who takes quiet moments to pray or reflect during times of conflict rather than succumbing to anger, we can find strength. And from Leavitt's example, we learn the power of living with honesty and humility, even in competitive and high-pressure environments such as the workplace or social media. These small but meaningful actions, listening, forgiving, and staying sincere, can foster connection and understanding, much like their candid dialogue inspired the studio audience. In a time of growing polarization, Such acts are vital steps toward building a more unified community. Subscribe to our channel to explore more powerful stories of faith, hope, and resilience, including the remarkable journeys of Kash Patel and Karoline Leavitt. Thank you for watching, and we look forward to sharing more inspiring stories with you in the next video.